Testosterone is driving the seeking of sex, and estrogen is promoting the actual act of sex from females, so-called receptivity, consensual receptivity. In males, it's interesting to point out that testosterone is promoting seeking of sex, but it's also estrogen in males that's important for libido. If estrogen levels are brought too low, then men will completely lose their libido.
Unlock the secrets to tripling your testosterone levels with insights from Andrew Huberman. Discover how hormones and behaviors are interconnected.
The amazing thing about hormones is that hormones impact all those things, but all those things, how we feel and what we do and what we think, also can impact our hormones. And so it's a really fascinating area of biology that impacts every single one of us every day, both in wakefulness and in sleep and throughout the lifespan. When you hear sex steroids or steroid hormones, most people think about anabolic steroids. And of course, anabolic steroids are derivatives of testosterone or testosterone itself, and they are heavily used and abused in the sports community as well as outside the sports community. But there, of course, are many steroids that are not anabolic steroids that are also abused in sports. Today, we're not talking about drugs in sports, but I think that it carries such a heavy weight when people hear the word steroids, they think about anabolic steroids. So while today's discussion will certainly be relevant to physical performance, in fact, we're going to talk about how specific types of exercise, particular patterns of cold exposure, as well as particular patterns, believe it or not, of breathing can impact sex steroid hormones, both estrogen and testosterone. The discussion isn't really geared towards performance enhancement in sport, although we will do an entire episode, perhaps even an entire month related to performance enhancement in physical enterprises.
In this video, we delve into the intricate relationship between dopamine and testosterone, highlighting how effort becomes rewarding. Learn how cholesterol allocation, sleep, light exposure, and exercise impact your hormone levels.
Dopamine and testosterone have a remarkable interplay in the body. Dopamine is actually released in the brain in ways that has the pituitary, this gland that sits over the roof of your mouth, release certain hormones that then go on to promote the release of more testosterone. And indeed, winning promotes more dopamine and later more testosterone. However, in the short term, just competing increases testosterone independent of whether or not you win or lose. So the short version of this is that competition increases testosterone. And this may be an ancient mechanism whereby the androgens such as testosterone are feeding back to encourage more competitive type behaviors. Because every species, whether or not you're talking about reproduction or other resource allocation, is involved in competition. Testosterone has some very interesting effects on the brain. The major mental effect of testosterone is it makes effort feel good.
Oh, that makes sense.
And the reason it does it is that the amygdala, this fear center in the brain, this anxiety center in the brain, has androgen receptors. It has testosterone receptors. And so the way this works in animals and in humans as well is that for most species, the males of that species never get a chance to mate. The molecule cholesterol can be converted into testosterone or estrogen, but there's a competition whereby the cholesterol will turn into cortisol and not testosterone, or it'll turn into cortisol and not estrogen if stress levels are too high. So the simple version of this is getting your breathing right during the waking hours, meaning primarily, unless you're working out really hard or there's some other reason why you're maybe eating or speaking, that you need to be breathing through your mouth, you should be a nose breather. There's really good evidence for that now. And in sleep, you also want to be a nose breather because that's going to increase the amount of oxygen that you're bringing into your system and the amount of carbon dioxide that you're offloading. There are other positive effects of it as well, but you're basically reducing apnea. Breath holding in sleep leads to buildup of carbon dioxide and leads to increases in cortisol, which then decrease testosterone and decrease estrogen in negative ways across all sexes. If you look at sperm counts and testosterone levels in males in different areas of the United States, they are significantly lower in areas where there's a lot of pesticide use, in rural areas where there's a lot of farming and pesticides. Very serious issue. And in the offspring of mothers that ingest phthalates, there's the anogenital distance is what they study in the lab.
The what?
The anogenital distance, literally the distance between the base of the scrotum and the anus in males is much greater than it is in females.
There's a word for that.
Females don't have a scrotum, obviously, so they measure from the base of the genitals to the base of the vagina to the anus. In males, they go from the base of the scrotum. Depends on the study. Sometimes it's the top of the scrotum. I always say, you always have to be careful when people are measuring anything related to genitalia because somebody's going to cheat in the measurement. So in any event, I don't know how they controlled for that, but she shows these remarkable pictures in mice and in humans of people that are exposed, or mice that are exposed to phthalates, and basically males are showing the more female-like pattern of anogenital distance when they're exposed to these phthalates in utero. Okay, this is not post-birth. This is in utero. The mother's being exposed. It crosses the blood-placental barrier. What's happening? Well, this is reducing sperm counts. Now, what can people do about this? Well, first of all, there's this question of whether or not phthalates are having a similar effect after a child is brought into the world. We know that, for instance, just very briefly, that during pregnancy, the brain is organized male by way of, believe it or not, testosterone converted to estrogen through a process called aromatization. But the growth of the penis, the fact that there even will be a penis, et cetera, is set by a testosterone called DHT, dihydrotestosterone.
Explore the role of specific compounds like vitamin D, zinc, magnesium, and creatine in optimizing testosterone. Discover herbal supplements like Tongkat Ali and Fidosia agrestis that can significantly boost your testosterone levels. Uncover the secrets to maximizing your hormone health and vitality.
Most people who aren't exploring testosterone augmentation for sport work very well to increase testosterone by about 100 to 200 points. Not, 300, not a tripling or anything like that. And the main ones are two substances. One is called Tongkat Ali.
Oh, yeah. That stuff's real, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because what happens is the testosterone molecule, it's basically carried in a cargo. So it can be in its free form, unbound form, free testosterone. And everyone says, oh, I want more free testosterone. You want more, but these what are called sex hormone binding globulins. So there's something called sex hormone binding globulin and albumin. They carry the testosterone molecule to the different tissues of the body. So you don't want all your testosterone free. You want some of it bound up so that it can be delivered to the different tissues, including your brain. But if you have too much sex hormone binding globulin, the testosterone can't really do its things, okay? So Tongkat Ali, about 400 milligrams per day, has the effect of raising free testosterone and overall testosterone by about 100 to 200 points. And so we're not talking about full TRT or blasting, or now that I'm always amused on YouTube, they now call it sports TRT. That's when you get above 200 milligrams per week. So
Sports?
This is basically, you've got TRT, which is typically about 200 milligrams per week.
And we say 200 milligrams, when you're looking at a syringe, what is that?
So
is that 1,000 milligrams?
So the typical dose of testosterone replacement therapy is 200 milligrams given once every week to 2 weeks. If you're going to explore testosterone augmentation, I think those are decent places to start, but you do need to do your blood work. You need to monitor your liver enzymes. You need to be smart about your health.
It's also most likely not going to make you look like somebody that abuses steroids that's on Instagram.
Right. It absolutely won't.
Right.
What it will do is increase it will mildly increase some of the parameters that we've talked about related to testosterone. Willingness to effort, for one. Some people get big libido increases. Some people, they're more subtle. It's a subtle increase of 100 to 200 points, right? In some, there are the extreme cases of 400 or 500, but I've seen, and someone wrote to me and said, my testosterone only went up 50 points or something. Okay. First of all, the sourcing is going to be key. There's a lot of garbage out there. There's a big problem with the supplement industry. And this is also relevant to where we're probably going, which is things like TRT. The quality control provided from a doctor in a clinic is quite high compared to the supplement industry. I can mention names for Tongkat Ali and Fidosia. The only ones that I'm aware of that are what they say they are, although there may be other companies too, is Solaray makes the Tongkat Ali, and Barlow's Herbal Elixirs makes the Fidosia. Certain collections of nutrients are useful for promoting testosterone and estrogen production in their proper ratios. And those things are what I would call the sort of usual suspects. Vitamin D, which is important for so many biological functions, including endocrine functions, zinc, magnesium, etc. And if you want to look into this more deeply and you want to understand exactly what the negative effects are of not having sufficient zinc, magnesium, and what those levels might actually be, there's a paper that's available. You can go on PubMed. I can't pronounce this last name. I'm sorry. It looks to me like Wrzosek, but it's Wrzosek. I hope I didn't butcher that too badly. Wrzosek et al., 2020 in Endocrinology and Metabolism Review. So there's a recent paper in a good peer-reviewed journal. It talks mainly about how the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis and the sex steroid hormones are negatively impacted by deficiencies in magnesium, deficiencies in vitamin D, and deficiencies in zinc. However, that doesn't point to the levels that one should take in order to optimize. So it doesn't say take X amount of zinc or X amount of magnesium or X amount of vitamin D. For that information, because it's so context dependent and individual dependent, I highly recommend you go to examine.com. You can put in zinc or magnesium or vitamin D, and they will give you ranges of dosages that are supported by specific studies. Again, that information is completely free to you, and it's very useful in figuring that out. I personally have supplemented with zinc, magnesium, and vitamin D for years, but many other people do that as well. And the question is always how much, and that's why I'm a proponent of getting blood work done, because that's how you know whether or not your androgen levels, as well as things like vitamin D levels, et cetera, are sufficiently high. I've seen people get 400, 500 nanogram per deciliter increases, but they started off low, okay? And then Fedogia agrestis, 600 milligrams. I've seen people recommend a lot more. I don't think that's a good idea. Fedogia tends to increase luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone is the signal for the testes to make more testosterone. Fedogia in many people will actually increase testes size. It's a tangible increase in testes size. Now, there are some reports out there about toxicity of Fedogia. Mm-hmm. Those were rat studies. They may have merits. I do think everyone should get their blood work done, and they should before and after trying any of these kinds of things. And I think that people should be careful to get their liver enzymes included in those profiles. Okay, so again, 400 milligrams of Tonga Ali, 600 milligrams of Fedogia will work to increase testosterone by way of luteinizing hormone and freeing up testosterone.